So, building new. There's a lot of pros to building new. You have higher tax depreciation. You can buy wholesale, and that's what I was talking about, doing it yourself. Lower maintenance. The negatives are that the areas that you can often buy in have lower growth potential initially until that land supply is taken up. And then the holding costs, you've got some extra holding costs while you're building to fund too. But that's often offsetted by a lower stamp duty on the land that you have to pay. So they kind of even each other out at the moment. And the other negative for these newer areas is it's very difficult to predict. So I am suggesting that you focus on, again, houses on green title and cottage blocks, staying away from the units. I look for areas that have infrastructure immediately planned or in place. So some of them can have lofty 10-year and 20-year plans that never eventuate, and the school's cancelled and other things get delayed. So I look for the more imminent plans. I stay away from, I try to buy in private estates so that I'm staying away from Homes West housing, and I'm also staying away from the super high vacancy areas of Baldivis and Wallard and Alkimos. They're at like 10 to 12% vacancy at the moment, so just massive, and it's really difficult for us to find tenants. So my top three suburbs for building new are Dayton, Forestfield and Meadow Springs, and each of them fit my formula nearly entirely. Forestfield's got a slightly higher vacancy. It was actually at 2.5 until 2 months ago. It's jumped up. And Meadow Springs has a slightly higher vacancy, still below the Perth median, but it has jumped up in the last 2 months as well. So as you can see, compared to the established suburbs, it's a little bit more difficult to rent. But each of these, for their own reasons, have got some really significant growth drivers behind them. So some of the twists that we can do when building is we can use a cashback or a rebate to help with our financing. It's not to say that you don't need to show the bank that you've got the money to build, but take the example where we're able to get at least $20,000 from most developers and builders as a discount off of what is true market. And let's say if you were buying a $450K house and land package, and you were able to get, let's say you're financing at 90%, you'd need $55,000, including your stamp duty and purchase costs. And if you get a $20,000 discount and you structure it correctly, what it can mean is that you only need to put $35,000 cash into the deal. So you need to work very closely with your finance broker and put it together in a smart way. But a cashback and a rebate is something that you can, you can do it on an established if you have a savvy vendor, but very difficult to convince them how. So with new, it's possible. One of the other twists that we can do with new is dual key, and we're still having some clients build these through, and we're just starting to rent out the first of them. It's very popular in Queensland, and what it is two rentable dwellings under the one roof, and it adds up to really increase your overall rental return. So take this example from one of our clients that's building a property in Meadow Springs. $220,000 for the land there for a 500 square metre lot. You obviously need the extra land size to be able to put two dwellings under the one roof. $300,000 for the build turnkey, and the 3x2 under the roof is expected to rent for $350. The 2x1 under the roof is expected to rent for $350 and $250. So that adds up to $600. So a 6% yield when you might otherwise be getting 4.5% really helps with holding. This is something that you would do to hold it for the long term, not to speculate and sell it 12 months later. I don't suggest you speculate at all. So that's one way of having two separate incomes on the property and just helping how you hold it. So there's a plan to get your head around it. Might be difficult to see, but we've got a single garage over this side. This is one of the better designs that we've seen. Coming through to the house where we've got 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. And then on the other side we've got a double garage. So from the street it actually looks like just a traditional property. You can't tell that it's a dual key. And then that comes through to a 3x2 here, bathroom, laundry, bathroom. And each have their own private back area, al fresco, dividing fence, and double insulated walls.
How do you enter the smaller property?
So yeah, through you can also come through the side there and then round through there.
Is it just a myth that most people are discouraged from shared walls?
No, it's just the same as apartment living. Like if people are willing to live in an apartment, they're definitely willing to live in a house which is even lower density. So how this has become possible is the change in the R codes to allow auxiliary dwellings, and it fits within that, and there's definitely planning and building codes that you need to meet.
So would this be a better option when you're in like a battle axe? I know the battle axes aren't quite so...
So with a battle axe, and that's more covered in our next section on developing, you're still creating 2 titles. So I'd always go to create 2 titles because it adds more value where you can. This is more of a strategy where you've got 1 title, it can't be further subdivided, but you want to increase that holding income. So that's when you do it. And the negatives of this strategy is that banks aren't as willing to finance them because they can't find comparable sales. So you generally have to finance at 80% or less loan to value ratio. So you can't use as much finance on it.
How does it affect future capital growth?
So we always look to try and have this sit within we want it to be no more than the top end of the suburb. So some of the home buyers in the area will be building much grander houses. We're aiming for middle spec with some decent features. How does it affect its resale? Well, we haven't gone and resold that many of them, or any of them yet. Logan can't wait to do one. But where I suspect that filling a need in the market is there's many multi-generational families that are starting to live together. There's many brothers and sisters that want their start. I think that many of them, when they're actually going to go out and build these together, you could have your parents, or God forbid, retire next door to you. And yeah, well, babysitter, that's good, Colin. And so, yeah, that's possible. It leads me to my next one of the auxiliary dwelling, which is a granny flat, a way of adding and building a newer dwelling on an established property. Again, it's a separate rentable dwelling on the 1 title, so still on the 1 title. And some of our clients have been doing this when they've got a property in a more decent area where the rental return's not as great. They can add one of these on and really improve how their ability to hold it. This is an example from a property in Wilson. The total cost to add this granny flat on was $160,000. It took them 4 months to build. I'd really love to see this cost continue to come down. This is more on the premium side of adding a granny flat. He is getting $370 a week rent for it being partially furnished. So that's a 12% yield on that money that he's spent. So it still stacks up. And he had decent equity in the house and was able to finance it. And then he revalued it on completion. The banks are much more happy to reval on completion than they are to finance on a building contract as fully. So it's a challenge for our finance brokers in the room. So
70 square metres?
yeah.
70. You got 3 by 1.
Yeah, I was surprised too. I'm not going to be racist, but he is renting it out to students, and doing quite well. It's still one lease, but they don't have as bigger needs, and obviously you can set up that 70 square metres in different ways, whether it's a 2x1. I'd suggest just doing a 2x1 and having a bit more of a living area.